How do we go from 20 touches back down to 2? I don't think that it's by automating more things. Every time I started to look at the problem, there was only one thing that came to my mind of what was wrong. It wasn't the engines. These automations and the emails and all that stuff going out weren't the problem. What was the problem was the fuel that we were putting into those engines. And when you just put in basic contact and account data and you do a minimal level of personalization, it's just not good enough to get people's attention anymore.
We are announcing the official launch of Operator.ai.
That's how your GTM machine is. Most people are putting in crap gas and wondering why their machine isn't running well. We're premium octane fuel.
Nobody really has an unfair advantage anymore.
The market is spending $2.5 billion on basic account and contact data. That means thousands and thousands of companies, millions of reps all have that data. If that data was actually valuable, having it would mean you would get results. But everybody has that data. And you know what? Everybody has something. Guess what? Nobody has it.
Behind the scenes, it was a small group of people that were doing everything.
Welcome back to the GTM podcast. It's your host, Scott Barker.
I want to know how this insane growth actually happened. How much time are your sales reps wasting on manual tasks at the end of every sales call? How confident are you that your team has full visibility into the pipeline? Are you sure no deals are slipping through the cracks? Staying on top of every opportunity is tough, and that's why we're thrilled to partner with Attention. Attention's AI-powered call recording platform ensures that your deals are executed flawlessly. Records your calls, generates next step summaries, action items, and even creates scorecards for every single call, so your reps can continuously improve. But that's really just the beginning. Attention's generalized insights allow you to ask any question across all of your conversations. Think of it like ChatGPT for your sales calls. And the magic doesn't stop there. Attention also lets you build automated workflows tailored to your needs. For example, if a customer mentions they're at risk of churning during a call, Attention can automatically loop in a sales director or a solutions engineer to ensure that customer receives the full white glove treatment, reducing churn, keeping your business thriving. Attention is helping companies onboard reps faster, increase the productivity of their existing teams, and giving revenue leaders unparalleled visibility into their pipelines, all while automating those tedious, dreaded manual tasks. If any of those challenges sound familiar, I highly recommend checking them out at attention.tech.
What's going on, GTM listeners? Today, you get a little break from my ramblings as we launch a very special episode of the podcast. My partner in crime, Max Altschuler, GP at GTMfund, interviews Mark Kosoglow, a longtime friend and former CRO of Outreach and Catalyst, now CEO of Operator. In this conversation, Max and Mark give you a behind-the-scenes look at what it takes to really launch and incubate a company. They talk through the mission behind Operator and what's broken in sales today and where we might be headed. So I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did.
All right. Look who I'm sitting here with. Today we are announcing the official launch of Operator.ai with my good friend Mark Kosoglow. How you doing?
I'm feeling really good, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
It's been a long time coming.
I think you've been talking about this for like 3 years.
Yes, definitely. And we've been working together for formally since 2018, but before that, even longer, where, you know, I was an early investor in Outreach. You were, I think, for the first employer, the first business hire. And so
yeah,
I think we were working together late 2014 on that. And just both of us have seen a lot of the growth in this industry over that amount of time. I mean, it's been a decade.
Yeah.
2014 to 2024. So we've seen a lot. A lot has changed. I think we've had a lot of right calls along the way, been on kind of the forefront, a lot of this cutting edge technology. So let's talk about Operator. Give us a glimpse of kind of how this came to be.
Yeah, I think, Max, as far as I know, I think you're kind of the first sales hacker, growth hacker guy. I remember you did your book, 8 or 9 years ago now?
Yep.
And at Udemy, you helped grow that company, establish the GTM motion and everything. And then probably that was 2 or 3 years after you at Outreach. And that's when we kind of took some of the stuff you were doing, made it into a tool
Mm-hmm.
and a platform, and then launched Outreach as a product. And Manny and the rest of the founders and I got together, like say August of 2014, and it was a crazy ride. I remember Manny used to be my SDR. He drank a glass of wine and watched Downton Abbey and sent me 1,000 leads every Monday morning. I put him in Outreach, and guess what? I get like 200 or 300 meetings out of that.
Yeah.
And it was that easy. There was just nobody else emailing at that volume. Nobody had automation built into their system. Nobody had templates with variables so that you could do some personalization so that it looked like you were actually doing it. The only people doing that were people like me, like the sales reps that knew how to do mail merges, but so few people were doing that. This like revolutionized it and made it so much easier. But as we started to get into Outreach, guess what happened? At first, we just did automated emails. Then they sort of stopped working. So then we had to do manual emails. Then they started working. Then we had to put in phone calls, then LinkedIn touches, then all of these triggers and automations and all this kind of stuff to continue the momentum. And eventually we got to the point at Outreach where SDRs were prospecting, marketing was doing inbound stuff, and AEs were going outbound, and we could still barely meet our pipeline needs. And I left Outreach in 2022 to go to Catalyst, and I did some tweaks with the SDR team there and got some immediate results. But then after we got through that low-hanging fruit, the same exact thing happened again. Everything fell through the bottom of the barrel, and now I had to do these crazy things with the founders to make sure you and Scott from GTMfund would help us with pipeline generation as advisors and helping out. And it was crazy what we had to do. And every time I started to look at the problem, there was only one thing that came to my mind of what was wrong with everything. It wasn't the engines, like these automations and the emails and all that stuff going out weren't the problem. At least the infrastructure of it wasn't. What was a problem was the fuel that we were putting into those engines. And when you just put in basic contact and account data and you do a minimal level of personalization, like just like on an industry level or on like a news level or something like that, it's just not good enough to get people's attention anymore. And so when I started at Outreach, it took 7 to 9 touches to book a meeting. At the heyday, it took 15. Since COVID happened, it's how it takes 20 to 25 touches to book a meeting. That economically barely works for most companies. So how do we go from 20 touches back down to 2? I don't think that it's by automating more things. I definitely don't think it's from AI writing emails. What I think it is by doing the hard work of finding out what is something that's interesting and creative that we can approach somebody with that breaks through the noise and gets them to attract them, or we attract them into a conversation. And so that's what we're trying to do at Operator. We're trying to go from 20 touches back down to 2. And we're doing that by making sure that we're using AI for some super interesting stuff to find those insights that are interesting and create enough to grab someone's attention.
And getting to know the customer and the ICP first before you layer on that AI, right?
What's crazy is, so as a data company, we have a bunch of data. We actually know people that would be our customers just as well as they know themselves, sometimes better. We're born in AI. Like without AI, our company wouldn't exist. It's at the most basic foundation of what we do. So since we have that kind of intimacy with AI, that allows us to know our customers very well. So once we know our customers, we know what they need, and now we can recommend to them what's inside of our platform and our offering that allows them to be more effective. So let's say that we have 150 attributes on a person. Well, maybe only 30 of them apply to a certain company in a certain industry. So we can eliminate all of that noise and concentrate you on what really matters the most.
Yeah. What's very important about that is, we've gotten all these different tools and technologies over the past decade, and really over the past, 4 to 6 years. It's proliferated in the way that it has because of VC funding and just the technology that's been available. But what you're seeing, what's happening is that nobody really has an unfair advantage anymore. When you had to go do a ton of work to understand that, somebody just raised a Series B and therefore you should congratulate them on the round and they might be a good fit for your product, something like that. That was a good tactic.
Yeah.
And it was hard, so it wasn't scalable. So it actually worked. And the person, on the receiving end, maybe they received 1 or 2 or 3 congratulatory emails from vendors, and it was good timing and it was cheerful, and it was like, okay, I'll take a meeting. Now with a lot of these signal-based applications that don't really get to know the customer, or the seller that has bought their product first, everyone's getting those same signals.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're getting your signals from a company that has thousands of customers and they're all getting the same signal at the same time, and all of their customers are then sending the same email to the same prospect, congratulating them on the Series B, the person on the receiving end of that email is getting 60 emails or 100 emails that all say, hey, congrats on the Series B, check out my product.
Yep.
Now it doesn't work anymore. So what you're ending up with is the great ignore, right? That's what we're calling it. All this noise that's happening from the easy button being smashed over and over and over again on automate, automate, automate. And everybody using kind of all these signal products or all these data products that basically give them all the same information, because it doesn't get to know you first and know your buyer and then connect you on the things that matter, in that relationship.
The market is spending $2.5 billion on basic account and contact data. That means thousands and thousands of companies, millions of reps all have that data.
Mm-hmm.
If that data was actually valuable, guess what? Having it would mean you would get results as long as you acted in a decent way, right? But everybody has that data. And you know what? Everybody has something. Guess what? Nobody has it.
Yep.
It's kind of like, we're about to go into the NFL season here. If you got 5 quarterbacks on your roster when you enter the end of the season, you got 0,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yep.
And so that's the first thing. And then the second thing is the easy way, the traditional way that may have used to be difficult but is now easy to personalize was based on buyer journey. So what you have is 70% of your TAM, your total addressable market, is unaware that they have a problem. If you go talk to them, they don't give a crap because they don't even think they have a problem. Some of them don't have a problem. 20% of your market is aware, but you're not prioritized. That problem isn't prioritized because they have bigger things in their way. 7% of your market is actually considering buying something because they've now realized that that problem is big enough that they need to solve it. And 3% is actively in an evaluation to get a solution. So that means only 10% of your TAM is actually putting out signals. And those signals are the typical way. That's like the no-brainer way that you have to do it. And listen, I'm not saying that that's bad to do. You have to do it. You can't exit that part of your GTM strategy. But if you're trying to tune your whole GTM strategy to that, let's look at it. 10% of your TAM, that doesn't sound good. But what you're not taking into account is, 1, your direct competitors that are competing against you that probably have the same signals you do. 2, your indirect competitors. Those are the ones that are fighting over the same budget, even though their products aren't related to yours at all. And then you also have all the rest of the world that is getting these same signals and attacking these same people with the same automations, the same kind of lazy messaging, the same kind of personalization that's like, look at what my product does. These are the problems that we solve. Do you have these problems? And maybe we should talk. That's like a banner ad. When's the last time you saw a banner ad on a website, Max?
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah, they got rid of them because they don't work. And that's where that kind of outbound strategy is going. It's so in your face. It's always there that it's so ignorable. And like you said, there's the great ignore now. And I'm not only just ignoring emails, I'm ignoring phone calls and cold calls that are really bad. I'm ignoring DMs in my LinkedIn or wherever socially I communicate with people. I'm ignoring those. And people not only are ignoring it, but now we've created GDPR, CCPA, DNC lists, these really hard spam traps and all this kind of stuff that are bent against salespeople getting in touch with the people they're trying to help. We've created this own situation where we've actually bothered people so much that they now are willing to say, you know what? I know there's 2 or 3 really great things in my inbox, but I don't care anymore because there's 100 bad things, and I'll throw out the baby with the bathwater in order to keep my sanity.
Yeah.
And we have to reverse that. That's why it takes 20 to 25 touches to book a meeting. That's just too much.
So walk us through the product. What can people do?
There's 5 things that Operator is going to do. The first thing is we believe that since basic account and contact data is fairly meaningless, but you do have to have it, it's kind of table stakes, we are going to give that away for free. So we're going to allow you to build a list for free as big as you want with basic accounts and basic contact data. So build that list any way that you want to. The second thing that
So that's building a list from scratch. That's importing a list from CRM, spreadsheet, you name it, and then
yes,
enriching it.
exactly. So you can upload a list and we'll replace what's wrong or we'll fill in what's missing. Or you can start from scratch and just use us and then upload it into your CRM or sync it into your CRM, however you want to do it. So we'll have a lot of the basic options of list building. I don't think that we're going to be very innovative there because list building is kind of a rote task. There's not a lot to innovate. The second part, though, is there's bits of information that are super interesting about people and companies that allow us to personalize and start to break through the noise, but they're very difficult to get. Like, for example, let's say I wanted to look at every podcast you've been on in the last 6 months and figure out how does what Max talk about relate to my value prop at Operator? Well, that would be really cool information to have. Well, our CTO has built an extremely sophisticated AI agent that's actually made up of many different AIs that all talk to each other and try to figure out what is the best way to get the most accurate information. And it will go out and find information like that. It can find information like, tell me what's happened with employee engagement the last 3 times that they've changed CEOs. Go get me the board of directors at a privately held company. Get me revenue information about privately held companies. And the AI agent is able to go out and find this information on the web and then bring it back into a structured data inside your list.
That's amazing. Okay, and then where does it go from there?
Well, listen, that's not enough, Max. We both know, we've both led sales reps. We've seen what sales reps do. If you give them a big spreadsheet and then you add more columns to the end of it,
Yeah.
they just ignore it even more, right?
Yeah.
It's just this big, flat, black and white
Eyes
thing.
gloss over. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So they're just going to keep doing what they've always done. So what we need to do is we need to look at the entity, so the company or the person, and we need to analyze the data that we have in that table. Maybe some of it is in our core data set. Maybe some of it is data that we've gone and fetched for you. But inside that data, if you look hard enough, there's usually something interesting in there. And let me give you an example of a use case that we just did recently. We ran a list of 100 companies. We augmented them with some employee engagement data and some hiring data. And we found one company on that list of 100 that the last 3 times that they changed a C-level executive, 37% of their frontline leaders attrited, which was over 2x the average. Now imagine your culture amp or some kind of employee engagement company, and you send an email or make a cold call or send a DM that says that to a CEO. That CEO is picking up the phone. They're going to respond to that email. And so what we need to do in that third part of our build is we need to analyze on the per entity basis and find out what is interesting in the data so that now we have like real ammo to go after prospects with and to break through the noise with something that is interesting in order to attract them into a conversation.
Right. And that's interesting to them and connects them to us.
Yeah.
So that's the key piece there. Not just congrats on your Series B. Here's how I'm going to do this like gymnastics to figure out how that connects me to your business. Basically like congrats on having the budget.
Yeah.
Maybe you do, maybe you don't now for my product. So you're actually like really doing the research and connecting that. And AI is, the product is built. I think a lot of these technologies have been built pre-2022, pre-2024. This is built from, the ground up with AI. It's basically a growth engineer on autopilot for your company. So that's pretty amazing. And so, I know there's more. So what's the next? Where does it go from there?
Yeah. So listen, once we find something interesting, we go into the fourth part, which is how interesting is it? And I think that right now, if you ask a typical company, do you need more accounts? Almost every company says yes. Do you know why? Is because they can't execute on the accounts that they have in a way that gets them the results that they need. So that what they do is they do what I call the easy man's better, which is more. I can't figure out how to really get into these accounts, so just give me more accounts, and that way I'll still hit my numbers, even though I'm making it even harder to get into the accounts that if I just took a little bit of time with, I could get into right now. So we don't want to expand your list. We want to shrink your list. So we want to find out how interesting is this insight. If it's not interesting enough, you need to either find another data set or you need to wait to go after that company. But we think that fundamentally, you should concentrate on the companies that are most likely to convert because you have something interesting to say. And then the last part is we take that interesting stuff. Now that we've shrunk the list, we have a tight list of accounts. There's something really cool to say to. Now we need to shuttle that inside off into other AI engines. Like for example, a company that can write ads with that insight, a company that could buy keywords to serve those ad ups.
Actioning off.
Action, like a sequence writer, an email writer, a blog post writer, a landing page creator, whatever kind of you've hooked up to your GTM machine.
Yep.
We can feed it with much better
plug
fuel.
It into ABM. You can plug it into even direct mail sending platforms, ad campaigns, outbound campaigns.
Yeah.
You name it. Yeah.
And you know, Max, like you drive really nice cars. If you go in and you put in the 87 or 85 grade gasoline, they run like crap, don't they? If you put in the premium, you do like what we did when we were on the highway here. Like we're blowing by everybody, right? And so that's how your GTM machine is most people are putting in like ethanol crap gas and wondering why their machine isn't running well.
Yep.
We're premium octane fuel. You put it in there, that thing's going to go.
So it does seem like there's a new generation of GTM tools that are coming out these days. How does Operator fit into that mix?
Yeah, I think that I've been really impressed. And actually, probably a year ago, I was really getting into some of these new tools. But unfortunately, what I found is they're kind of like halfway there. I remember when we started at Outreach, there was a company called ToutApp, and ToutApp had just raised $16 million from Andreessen Horowitz. They should have been what Outreach was, and even better, right? But they just didn't quite have the right idea yet because they were so far ahead blazing the trail. They didn't quite realize that they were going off towards Canada, not California.
Second mover advantage is real, is a real thing, yes.
So we've watched some of these for the last year, and some of the things that we've picked out are, for example, like they've offloaded some of the technical complications to users. So you have to be really bright, or you have to go to some class, or have to hire somebody to help you.
Prompt engineers, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, to figure out how to use the product. And I've heard tales of even some products where people are getting in there and they're spending money and they're getting that first bill and their eyes are popping out of their head because they were just trying to dabble around and experiment to get the right results. They didn't even really pull their list yet.
Yeah, they got billed for a list 3 times because they were trying to refine it, and come out with a finished product, right?
That's right. Or like there's so many choices, or you have to string together 18 results in order to get what you want. And you know what? There's plenty of people that are really smart in doing that. There's a lot of agencies that are genius in how they're putting that stuff together. And a lot of companies should take advantage of that. But I think like the everyman needs a tool that's simple enough and like effective enough that they can get in there and do it so that they can then push all of that stuff into their system and their GTM engine. And so I think that that's the first thing, is like just a very technical product that doesn't solve ease of use for the customer, but is very powerful, right? And I don't think that that's quite the right direction. That's one thing I've seen. The other thing I've seen is a bunch of companies that are all steering towards the same group of people to go after, which is that 10% of buyers that are either in consideration or evaluation. And that's where the market seems to really be going, because those people are easy. They're looking, they're putting out signals, they're saying, I'm ready, right? And so I've seen so much of this new go-to-market tech is built on converting those, which again, I think you have to be really good at that. But if that's all that you're going to be good at, you're ignoring the other 90% of the market, because 90% of the market isn't hiring somebody in the role that you're trying to use.
Not on your website.
Yeah, right.
Not a website visitor. Yeah, exactly.
They're not doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And like de-anonymizing website traffic. It's interesting. It's something that you probably should do. But what about the billions of people that aren't going to your website that might have the problem?
Yeah.
And it's a funny story, but like, I drove the same car until a couple weeks ago that I'd driven when I started at Outreach. It was a 2014 Ford Flex, and my kids hated it. They called it the toaster, but guess what? It's paid for. It never went to the shop. And when I needed to take something somewhere, I could throw it in the back, right? And so I'm not getting a new car. Well, my new buddy, or my one buddy, introduced me to a friend of his that lived a couple streets over. And I go down there, and this guy has this beautiful Porsche in the driveway, and I'm talking to him about it. And next thing I know about, it's this year, it's this model, this the pinnacle of this, it's this, and this. And then I come back a couple of days later, and we drive it around, going somewhere together. And then we come back. Next thing you know, who's buying this Porsche off of this guy? Me.
Yeah.
Now, was I putting off any signals I was looking for a car? No, I was putting off anti-signals that I was looking for a car. Did I have any kind of consideration that I might be in the market for a car soon? Heck no. Did I know I had a problem? I didn't have a problem. And so, but what happens when you get somebody in front of someone that's interesting, educational, opens your eyes about things? It opens your mind and says, maybe that I would want to do this.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're missing in sales is more and more people are doing that great ignore,
Yeah.
which means that the only people they're listening to are the people in that tight little circle of people that they trust and talk to, which means that the ideas are going to be less creative and less effective.
And done right with Operator, with the use of modern AI, you can actually do this at scale to a degree. So that's very exciting. The last thing, AI SDRs. Take on that, because that's the other one that certainly been making waves. I think we both have a similar take on that.
Yeah, I think so. The market is where it's at with all of these things that governments have put in place to stop us from getting in touch with people because of human activity. And humans only work 8 to 10 hours a week. They can only do so many activities in a day and in an hour. They can only put so many people into a sequence or an automation. They can only make so many phone calls. Well, what happens if we're in a world where the 8 to 10 hour and the constraints of how many clicks and things I can type in all go away, and it's just infinite capacity? We know what's going to happen. One is people are going to first be a little nervous and they're going to do some stuff and it's going to work because that AI SDR will never miss the low hanging fruit like a human would. So now people are going to get excited. What they're going to do, they're going to crank up the volume just a little bit.
Yeah.
And then they're going to start to get some results. And guess what? Those results will start to wane as the low hanging fruit goes away. You know what I mean? And then what is every revenue leader's reaction when results go down? Crank that activity up even more.
Your list is burnt and your domain is burnt. And my problem with it is that a lot of them are black boxes. And so you don't actually know what they're doing. And so they could be burning, your list of future customers.
Yeah.
Just sending all of your stuff to spam, potentially getting you in trouble.
But Max, you've heard it. People are like, that's not really how it works. I don't really look at my email and be like, oh, Max Altschuler emailed me 15 times this month. I'm not going to take his phone call or whatever. And I probably might agree with that. But what people aren't looking at is when there's 1,000 people doing that to Max Altschuler, then you just ignore everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe they aren't counting it against you specifically. I would argue that sometimes they are, and many times they are.
Yep.
But even if they're not, everybody doing that is causing a problem. And now what happens when we unleash an AI that can work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no vacation, can send infinitely many emails in a minute, can make, some of these AI SDRs are starting to do phone calls.
Yep.
And there's just I don't know, like one day are we going to wake up and our phone, when it doesn't ring, it's going to be more normal than it ringing. You know what I mean? Like that could be the case. But you know what Operator wants to do is two things, and this is very aspirational, but what if you woke in the morning and the first thing you do is check your spam folder because everything in there was interesting and educational and you learned a lot? And what if every time you got spam risk on your phone, you answered it because the last phone call you got was so interesting and informative?
Yep.
Like, I think that there's a world where that could exist. Will we get there? I don't know.
Yeah.
But we have to have something to plow to. And that to me is what I want to plow to.
It's a good goal.
Yeah.
Amazing. Very exciting stuff. Tell me about how the company came about. Tell me about the founding.
Yeah, so I think what it came out of was two things. One is you and I have been talking for a long time about contact data and account data. I think we've always kind of seen it as there's the gold miner and then there's the pickaxe.
Mm-hmm.
This is the pickaxe, right? We want to sell pickaxes, not gold miner, be a gold miner. And I think that we've been talking about how can we disrupt that industry because it just feels like people don't really want to participate in the way that it currently exists.
And it's, a bit dated at this point. I don't think there's been a lot of real innovation in it for a very long time, at least not from a first principles point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're building on what they had, afraid to cannibalize what they have. And you kind of have to take big leaps and take big risks, especially with the technology that's available to us now.
Well, let's just look at credits.
Yeah.
Is there anybody you've ever talked to that likes credits?
Nobody likes credits.
Nobody likes them. Yet every single company in that industry still uses credits.
They're getting double charged and triple charged and everything. Yeah.
That's right. Like this is kind of crazy, but you can hook into their system and have Max Altschuler in your CRM, and then some rep accidentally deletes you. You will actually pay that company to put you back into their system, even though they sucked you out of your system when you hooked them in.
Yep.
It's like, it's madness. So within the first month, that's the first thing that we decided, no credits. Our whole product, our whole GTM, whole monetization has nothing to do with credits. What we want is usage, because usage creates value.
Yep.
And if we have the right kind of product that doesn't allow you to build a list of 1 million companies, then we've done the right thing, right? If we just are more fuel for the spam cannon, then it doesn't work. And honestly, there's a bunch of companies that are entering the market that are just like putting on a new clip into the automatic rifle. It's like it's like insane. Like, oh, you know what? We can hook APIs up into a spreadsheet, and now we can just like go grab 1 million things from 1 million different people, and it's still all junk. But like we can do it even easier now.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to be the opposite of that. Like, listen, we're going to be super simple and super easy to use, but we don't want to just be more ammunition that you put in your spam cannon. And listen, I think you have to be good at signals. So I am not saying don't buy signal-based companies. But what I am saying is if your whole GTM strategy is built on signals, there's no way it can pay off because everybody's got those same signals.
Tech has always been a magnifying glass. So if you got rat shit, it's going to be elephant shit on the other side. I mean, that's just always how it's been. So you got to even if it's a little more manual in the beginning, build a good process, and then you can layer on the technology to add levels of scale to that. So, so we were talking for quite a while. I know you were, outreach and catalyst, but talk to us a little bit more about, how the team came together, how the company came together, what the funding round looked like.
Yeah. So I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do after I'd left Catalyst. We were talking and you're like, hey, I think we should incubate a company inside a GTMfund.
Mm-hmm.
What would you think of running it? And my first reaction was like, that's not really me, Max. But you know me. So what you said is like, hey, go talk to some people. See if there's an idea here. See if there's something here. And you knew me well enough to know once I started getting curious and talking to people, I kind of started to get really into it.
Yeah.
And so after about 30 conversations and 2.5 weeks, I came back to you and I was like, all right, I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's something here. And I think you told me for the first time, $2.5 billion worth of spend in one of the worst NPS categories in software. That says market opportunity. So that was enough for me to do the work to see it. But once I realized how visceral it was that people disliked these companies, disliked how they did business, how they contracted, the
how
results.
mission critical it is, right? Like, you can't really live without it.
Nope.
So it's mission critical, fairly low NPS across the board. I don't think anybody out there is like truly in love with, a vendor in this space. Where there are other categories where that's absolutely the case.
Yeah.
Where it's, I have a diehard allegiance to a certain vendor. So space ripe for disruption. Again, I think companies that have been around for a very long time that haven't really approached the product with first principles thinking, and in many cases just because they can't cannibalize their current business model.
That's right, yeah.
And it made perfect sense for you. I mean, SVP of Global Sales at Outreach from 0 to 250 million in revenue. You were, I think, employee number one or
employee one,
close to it, and so you were very heavily involved in the initial product and product strategy. And having worked with Mark, to all the listeners here as kind of his marketing counterpart, and even before that as an investor at Outreach, one of the things I really liked about Mark was he was really engaged in conversations across the business, not just on the sales side of the business, but as a true kind of what's best for my equity type thing, not just best for what my team needs. And very understanding of products, saying like, hey, Mark, I know that like you need this for sales, but here are the priorities and here are the things we need to get, covered for. Or same thing with marketing. If marketing has that conversation, but he was always in the room. He was always super respectful and diplomatic about kind of what everybody needed. So I thought he would be a great CEO for this. Obviously, he knows the space very well. And we had Adam Meyer join us as head of product, who we worked with as a contractor at Outreach. He was on my marketing team as a contractor for us, did a lot of work. Built the coldemailgrader.com, which was a cool little demand gen thing we had for a little bit. And then Adam brought on Jeremy as CTO, Jeremy Jonas from Amazon, principal engineer at Amazon. So had a great team together, and GTMfund and Primary Ventures led the round together. So very excited to be off to the races on this thing with you. We've been building since beginning of the year, so this launch is not just hey, we just raised the money, what's up? This has been almost a year in the works now, so we're ready.
It's been a while, and Adam and I had an immediate connection, which you probably knew that was going to happen. He's a really easygoing, hyper intelligent, give me a beat to assess my thoughts, and I'll come back to you with some thoughtful opinions. That really balances out I have an initial reaction and I'm kind of going to give it to you.
Yeah.
And so we really balance each other out that way. Jeremy has been a genius. He worked on a very special team, was a principal engineer, which took him over 200 hours just to get that title at Amazon, and was ahead of a bunch of prototyping, and just is an amazing talent. We have a guy named Carl Gunderson, who's also equally talented on the front end side and is helping Jeremy with some of how do we pull the data from the back end to the front end. And then I reunited with my first AE hire at Outreach, which is Pleasant Middlehoff, and she's our CEO and helping us with the day-to-day stuff. So
COO.
COO.
Yeah.
What did I say? CEO.
Yeah.
Maybe she's a CEO. Sometimes it feels like it.
Yeah,
she's
doing a lot. She's doing a good job.
Yeah, she's taking care of a bunch of stuff so that I can stay focused on two things, which is one, talking to customers. And I always tell you, I always get like this founder thing is new for me. The CEO thing is new for me. I was super early at Outreach, but I just didn't have to deal with some of the stuff that Manny and the founders did. I wasn't a founder. I was an employee. And, over time, I think I really helped with the culture of that company and was considered like, a very important cog of everything that we did and how we got there. But like, I'm dealing with things in this role that I've never dealt with before. And so having that kind of even keeled team all together has been really, really important for me. But like I tell you all the time, I'm usually nervous except when I'm talking to customers.
Yeah.
And the more I talk to customers, the more I feel like this is the type of disruption that people want. No credits. Take me down to less touches. I don't need a list of 1 million people. I just need a list of the people that actually have something interesting to say to. And then let me get in front of them in order to help them understand if they need me or not, right?
And make it easy to use.
That's right.
I think that's another, key piece of it. You have to be able to let them do their own work and try their experiments in the application without having to be a prompt engineer or something else, right? So very excited about this. Operator.ai is a site. Get over there, get on the wait list. We are accepting customers into the product on a kind of rolling basis right now, just making sure everything works. But it's been months and months and months of building. So we are not this is not an MVP. This is not a V1. This is a pretty robust piece of equipment that we built here. So very excited to get it out to the masses. Mark, thanks for coming on the GTM pod. I don't do a lot of these anymore. I got my better looking, taller proxy Scott gets to do them all for me. I gotta get that quaff that he's got. How do I get the Scott hair going? No, but yeah, excited for you, excited for us, and looking forward to having you on the show more often.
Cool.